This is where I need to kind of like ground myself. And yeah, I have to like, I'm sitting on the floor now to ground myself. And these dreams this week, I really wanted to not talk about them because I was like, I really think dream analysis is so personal. But as I sat with these dreams, I was like, there are 2 points that I really have to read about. And I had this dream, and in the dream, it was so vivid that people were walking and they were displaced from the state of California and they were in Texas, which I already know was going down now. I was part of that whole 2020 into 2021 just, move to Texas um movement, and this felt new. And in this particular case, I was like in like horse fields or cow pastures, and the grass was like greenish yellow, so it wasn't a drought. It was like regular Texas, like um like grass fields. And I distinctly knew that this group of people, and it kind of was like we were at a county fair, but all the fields were vacant, but I knew there were animals around. I just didn't see them, but I saw like their presence was around. And I knew there was a barn. Um, and people were moving through fences, and like I was helping people move through the fence, and particularly I was helping this one person move through a fence, and I was holding their hand and I helped them through the fence line. And the groups of people were pretty hopeful. And this purple, like this kind of purple, was the color of the sky in front of us. And we were moving, like, how like herd pastures or horse pastures are kind of like all separated, but you can kind of walk in these sections. And it was a pretty wide section in between the pastures, and they were lined by fences, and people were walking towards this purple sky, and it was very, very vivid, like this purple, like a lavender purple. And I was specifically looking at it, and I said, um Texas skies can be beautiful as well. And we were walking, distinctly I knew we were walking from the northeastern side of Texas, but we were in a central part. It was not Austin. I know everybody's moving to Austin. To the southwest part of Texas, like towards El Paso. So like across Texas. So I don't know how people from California would be going from northeast to southwest, but the energy felt very hopeful. And so I interpreted this as the Great American Eclipse of 2024, which takes place on April 8th. But when I looked up what a purple sky meant, it can mean pollution, it can mean solar radiation, it can mean the pollution from a volcanic eruption, and it can also mean wildfires, which is also pollution, air pollution. And I don't think that what we're experiencing with hurricane slash tropical storm Hillary is anything isolated. And I think that the important thing to note here is this earthquake that also occurred, because I think the earthquake is an indicator of something else going on that may be related to what that Dianne Feinstein and Mitch McConnell whole situation really was. So when certain contracts are utilized, I think that certain technologies can also be utilized as well. If an atomic bomb can be made, why would it be so crazy to say that also maybe there's something that can create earthquakes? And maybe it was like a signal to let us know, there's something else in control here, and it's fucking with our brains and trying to uproot us, because the earth has chakras, and it just so happens that, these chakra systems in the earth, like there's the heart chakra. Hawaii, I think they, after watching like native videos, represents heart chakra. And then Mount Shasta in Northern California is a known first chakra, root chakra point. The other thing that I think is important to note, that California is the sacred state of the bear, the representation of the bear. And the bear, the grizzly bear, the brown grizzly bear, is extinct in the state of California. In order for that to happen, there were many manhunts of this species of bear to eradicate the species from California. And I believe the final grizzly bear was like a captive grizzly bear in San Francisco. And I believe that their taxidermy, um, I believe it's a taxidermy bear now in like a museum or something. But when I think about this energy, I think about, there's Bears Mountain, and there's, all of these symbolism of the bear. And my voice, I'm not talking coherently right now, but the symbolism of the bear, if you think of a mother bear, if you think of like this bear that's going to defend her land, and the fact that the symbolism of the gold rush creating such a energy that, as people settled into this native land of California, which is, a native tribal land of several tribes, that an entire species of sacred animal was eradicated. Like, just think about that displacement alone. The Pluto return of the United States, based upon the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, is highlighting these displacements. This declaration, furthered this energy of continually displacing people from their own homes and land. And now we're seeing technology trying to own land again, trying to take over the autonomy of land. So let's see. This is a second dream that I had, and it's very specific to farming. So for farmers listening, I'm not a farmer's almanac. I don't have a lot of experience farming, but I grew up around horses and feeding horses and having to keep horses, and my horse, and just the things that I witnessed on a small scale there, I was able to kind of translate through the dream. So this particular dream is about the U.S. production of wheat and animal feed, farmers and traditional feeds. So I saw kind of a disruption in feeds for animals, but this also includes Purina Mill and General Mills and mills in general for grains. And grain production was halted. The other part of this is that I saw chives, wild chives, and the need to understand the vitamin and mineral content of growing wild chives. Plowing practices with the lunar cycles. Which is something that I know is not new, but I'm sorry, I'm gonna crotch shot y'all. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. Plowing practices with lunar cycles, the soil turbidity, and working with the moisture of the soils through tarp squares, and turf farming through covered growing practices in pockets or squares. soil diffusion with earthworms, and can utilize pools and blow up plastic pools. So I saw this as like a wider scale thing because I saw this as like tiny little pools that people can put um in garages and sheds that are very small. I know there's like bathtub farming and stuff like that, but if you don't have little pools, it could even be like laundry baskets with um um plastic trash bags or tarps as well. So these are things that I saw in the dream. I saw some more stuff, and it's related to the overflow of streams and rivers in the greater Tennessee Valley. I think it's the Cumberland, and the state of Georgia. This is the United States, Georgia. Um, I saw with swine farms that they need apples, so I don't know why they were saying for pigs to feed them apples, but I was seeing that for those who do raise swine that they need magnesium. I don't know what that means. I've never ever ever raised pigs, and I just know them by like petting them and being friends. But like I've never raised them. So that's just part of the dream. And for chickens, so the one thing that I saw, did I write down the species? Grain. Okay. So this is very specific. And when I had this dream, this is the thing that also stood out. So I saw these beetles, and the species of beetle I had seen before. And I saw it many years ago, and I probably was still, it was probably like even around like 2001 or 2 when I saw this species. So there was a specific movement in the horse world where people were like changing their grain feeds and getting away from big companies like Purina, um, or these bigger feed suppliers, and kind of moving local. And so, I was in charge of feed at many of the farms. Would help feed, but I was also in charge of resetting medications, administering medications, all these different things. And there was like a higher class type of feed that a lot of like the shishi fufu like horse owners had. My horse was generally on Purina. I kept him on sweet feed to keep his weight up because he was a thoroughbred, and I wanted to supplement that because of the soil drainage where I lived. And we have very high iron soils where I live and very high um, lime. So I kept him on like a high fat feed. And I also supplemented him with something called beet pulp, which is like a dried beet pulp that you can buy and you have to soak it. Although I learned later you don't, but I'm OCD about something called colic with horses, so I soaked the feed. Um, and also always believe in hydration, so I soaked it for extra water as well. The reason why I'm sharing all of this and why this is going into really weird territory is because I kept seeing these little beetles, and they're called grain beetles. And this particular, we had a summer where it was pretty moist, and a lot of the mills were getting beetle infestations. And you have to be really careful with hay. You always have to inspect hay for, toxic beetles and things like that. But at the time, these beetles were popping through, and we had to like throw away whole things of these people's like shishi fufu grain. And I was seeing that these mills were having some trouble with beetle infestations. And so I just want to say, like, for those who feed cattle and for those who feed horses and animals that go on grain feeds, the overall message was to start pulling back from grain over the next 2 years. So this would be probably it's seeding me between 2024 and 2027, is to start utilizing alternative forms of feed from grain. And I know a lot of cow and horse feeds are grain and corn based and corn syrup based and things like that. I don't know the solution. I just know the suggestion per dream when I saw these beetles was to tell animal owners to go grain free as much as you can. And that if you've been thinking about doing it, it's like 1,000 thumbs up to your intuition already. You know, I was such like a sweet feed person. Like that was like my base. I saw really good results with sweet feed, but if I had a horse at this particular time, I would also be a little concerned about grain. And then I was seeing if you're getting bad batches. So this is a weird message, and I feel really bad for having okay, so this is the message that I got when I tapped into like the beetles is test your chickens. So if you have this is so mean. So chickens can kind of really eat anything. And if you get like a beetle infested grain a bag of grain to test them on your chickens. That's the message I got, which is really mean and really sad. And I don't know if I like also just kind of Google what the beetles are. And also like these messages are wild. These messages that I'm getting are like really wild. So but if you're getting full bags of like grain full of beetles, like your chickens will know. Anyway, so the cows. Let's get to the cows. So with cows, I want to say this is the message, and I don't particularly like the message because I love cheese and I love dairy and all this stuff, but this is the message I got about cows. Do not look, oh, do not, this is from the dream, so it's not written really awesome. Do not look like it, does not look like it because the plethora of in and outs, Whataburgers, and pop-up burger boutiques, but cows are energetically and endangered species, especially on a karmic scale, dairy producing cow herds. This herd is has sustained a significant mother wound, and the solution is tough because dairy is so good. It's also our mother medicine collectively. But energetically, we are drinking the sacrificed mother, which propels the patriarchy forward. And I'm talking about these cards. I'm not talking about the good fathers out there who care about your families and really want, you know, well-being. I'm talking about like Mitch McConnell freezing on the, you know what I mean? Like that kind of shit. Solution, phase off. Obviously, like I'm still gonna be like wanting a latte or, you know, cheese and stuff like that. Cheese fanatics, take 2 years and find a more sustainable local source if you can. You can make your own milk, Hawaii and other coconut sources. So how I felt that was like energetically, coconuts kind of also kind of really ask yourself about that and what grows locally in your area. So that's like nothing new. It's just like from the dream. Is there anything else that I want to share? No, this is going to be the wildest episode, and I will probably have to edit a lot with